philosophy that I learned from a great mentor in life and in business and in your career. You're either a multiplier or a diminisher. And I think, again, this goes back to a derivative of what I said earlier. You have to decide, to divide and conquer. Where do you stand? Most people don't have a clue where they stand, except for they want to make money. That's the least viable way to make money.
This is The Fighting Entrepreneur, the podcast dedicated to entrepreneurs looking to change the world. Learn how to start, build, and scale a business in today's highly competitive business environment. Here's your host, The Fighting Entrepreneur, Anik Singal.
What's going on, you fighting entrepreneurs? Guess who it is? Your favorite person in the whole wide world. And you know what? Today is a super special day. We have a guest on this podcast that I just one of my favorite business legends of all time. And you know his name, Jay Abraham. That's right. Now listen, if you missed the recent Webinar Confidential event, well, poo-poo on you. Seriously, you missed an amazing virtual event from it was the best marketers in the world. Jay Abraham gave a keynote speech at that event, and we're going to release that today in this podcast. As a matter of fact, all of our other keynotes will also get released in this podcast for the coming week. So you're lucky that you follow this podcast. But next time, don't miss our virtual events like this one. All right, but before we do that, because Jay is going to tell you 5 ways that you can evolve, all right, so that this pandemic doesn't hurt you, but actually helps you. He's going to teach you how to build a great offer, how to write great copy, all of that in this amazing interview. But before that, LURN.com. Come on, have you joined? It's an absolutely free it's a free site. It's a free membership for life as an entrepreneur. You get to be home. That's your home for entrepreneurs. Worldwide, we have over 410,000 members as I record this. God, you got to join. Otherwise, we're going to pass right by you, and that's going to be your loss. All right, so we've got that. And then second, AnikPodcast.com. Make sure you go binge our episodes and make sure that you leave us a review on iTunes. Every single week, I pick amazing winners to win cool stuff. Same thing with YouTube. Click subscribe. Click the thumbs up icon, click the bell icon, leave a comment below. Do it right now. I pick random winners from all the people who engage with our social media. All right, now without further ado, all right, this is a playback because I did this as an interview for our event. This was his keynote. I'm bringing it to you right now. Here it is. So let's take it away. All right, well, listen, everyone, what an honor today. I actually don't usually get nervous when we do interviews like this. I've met so many people, but I gotta tell you, a little bit nervous right now because the man that we're about to talk to, the man you're about to meet, is one who really needs no introduction. So I'm no one to give him an introduction, but I can't tell you how much of his content I've watched and how much of his words and his wisdom have impacted us at Lurn, have impacted my businesses, my multiple companies. They know him as the $21.7 billion man. And I'm actually surprised because I feel like he's probably the $1,000 billion man. He's been in over 1,000 industries, well over 10,000 clients that he's instrumentally helped move their business. I think my favorite part, though, about the guest that we're about to bring on is his innate ability to connect randomest of industries. Like he'll learn lessons from one space and bring it over to a completely different space and just open up our minds. And so it is absolutely an honor, beyond honors, to have you with us today, Mr. Jay Abraham. Thank you.
Oh, that's so gracious. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for the time.
Over generous, but my wife would like to hear it. All right.
Well, you know, it really is. So the closest we've ever been to running into one another, I'm not sure you even know this, but I could not get through your gatekeepers on this one. But we spoke at the same event in Singapore recently. And it was at I'm forgetting the name of it, but it was just a few months ago.
Yeah, it was the something of the century.
Yes. Yeah. Masters of the Century.
Yes.
Masters of the Century.
Yeah.
And it was so, because obviously everyone's crowded. It was crazy. And I was messaging with Desiree. I'm like, please tell him I'm here. I want to talk to him. I want to shake his hand. But you can ask my wife because she was back there with me. I was like, there's one person I've got to meet. It's him because,
it's very sweet.
You know, I've binge watched so much of your content. And I think the part that I love the most about your content, Jay, is just that it's at a different level. The thinking that you inspire, the questions you inspire. And I'm a big believer of, right, want the right answer, ask the right question. And so I really just want to take this minute to say thank you for all you do for entrepreneurs all over the world. And today, for us webinar marketers, us digital publishers, us digital marketers, we learn so much from your decades of knowledge and experience. So again, thank you. And I don't want to waste any time because I know that we have limited time. So I'm going to jump right in.
Okay.
I have a question for you that I know it's not a unique question at all. I can guarantee you're getting hit up by this all over the place. We have a little bit of a pandemic, a little bit of a lockdown, a little bit of craziness going on in the world. Some companies are getting hit really hard. Others, maybe not as much. But what are you seeing? What do we expect? How are you advising people to survive this? I mean, I'll turn it over to you because you deal with all kinds of different industries and companies. What should we be preparing for?
Okay, well, I will answer, but I'll try to contextualize it and direct it to your audience. Okay?
Please. Yes.
All right. So I would tell you what I see, but also what I advise. So it's going to be an integration. So the first thing is it's divide and conquer. You're at one side of the fence or the other. You either decide to be a victim or a victor. You either decide you're going to be defensive or offensive. You decide you're going to be tactical or strategic. You decide you are going to identify, harvest, and harness the ethical opportunities that are rampant in adversity because they benefit a lot of people, or you are going to be a voyeur up in the stands. You're either playing on the field. So I think the first thing is decide where you stand, okay? And if you're in the reactive, I can't help you much other than tell you better improve your soft skill sets. There's 5 or 6 things people don't realize. Trust building, there's 13 or 14 gradients to it. Stephen M. R. Covey is the preeminent authority, and you can master it, integrate it in your own conduct, in your office, your business, your team, your messaging, and it can triple your yield. Guy like Roger Love, do you know who he is?
No.
Roger Love is a master at what he calls strategic communication, how you are heard. You know who Sally Hogshead is?
No.
Sally Hogshead is a master at fascination, how you are seen. And you better do those things and master all of those besides just, sharpening the saw if you're going to be reactive. Now, if you're going to be proactive, strategic, ethically, we call it a realistic ethical opportunist, and you're going to play the game differently, here's what I tell people. First of all, assuming you are in a business, we can take all kinds of gradients because I've had to help pre-startups, startups that are never started, existing businesses that are struggling, and businesses that are exploding. So assuming you're in a business and you're either stuck or you're moving, but you don't know what to do, here's where opportunity lies first. Well, no, here's what you need to do first. If what you're selling is being purchased, then you want to be able to optimize your ability to even sell more and sell more combinations. It's what I teach, the geometry of business, and sell people more things more often for longer periods to increase the LTV. And that requires you to look at what I call the leverage marketing or impact elements in your business model, not just your funnel or your landing page, but your whole business model. It starts with your strategy, your business model, your revenue approach, your marketing messaging, your entry level starting point, your conversion, your upsell, all those things, because I've been trained, as you probably know, because I've done 1,000+ industries, actually 7,124 sub-industries, to see all kinds of higher performing alternative ways to do everything, and to look at, most people look at when they think optimization, they think in terms, excuse me, if I don't look at you, I'm thinking, so it's not meant to be rude to your viewers. It's probably rude, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to be benevolent. When you think of optimization in terms of technology, there's a finite number of factors they're optimizing. And those are great. And when I was young, when I was your age, in order to do that, you'd have to spend $1 million and it would take 6 months and you'd need great technology. Now you can do it with a freemium, which is great. But those are only a small portion of the impact points that can be leveraged up. We've done a lot of work on what we call working on the geometry of the business, because you can make every facet of the revenue system perform better. And I can get into it later. But so the first thing is you want to really optimize every facet, but you can't if you don't know what they are. So you got to learn what are all these interrelated, and that requires you to really get more nuclear, so to speak, in the whole revenue system. But you optimize that. Then you've got to, and today, in my opinion, you got to basically outperform anything you ever did in the past pre-crisis, because you're going to see now everything's opening up. The desirable product service people are going to just kill it with aggressive, ruthlessly, just comprehensive and enveloping marketing and discounting and bonus spacing and risk reversal and calls to action and webinars and everything you can imagine. So if you're going to be relegated to a commodity, you're going to die. You got to become differentiated. It's pretty axiomatic. But we say you've got to become preeminent. You can play back to me any part. I'm just going to dump on you, and then I'll get to it. So assuming you're doing well, if you got something people want to buy, you want to basically optimize. Optimizing means don't limit it to just what you sell. Ask yourself, what else does people buy normally before, during, after, instead? And this is a different concept than affiliate marketing. When you realize what all those are, you want to get control permanently of all of those components, including the alternative. If they don't buy from you, what else do they buy? An example, I'm getting a little bit rogue on you, but if you sold a weight loss supplement, you would say, okay, most weight loss people don't just buy one thing, they buy 9 million things. So you'd say, what else do they buy instead? Well, they buy other supplements, but they buy portion control food. They buy online training, personal training, equipment, memberships, books, and all of those things can be extensions. But if you only do an affiliate, it's launch, it's intermittent, it's static. You want to control not just all of those components, but the majority of the profit. That's another long story in negotiation. If you've got a business that has a product or service that's not terribly desirable right now, you want to say, what else do my past loyal clients, buyers, patients, whatever they are, what else would they buy that they would trust me to make available, to endorse, to recommend? So, you go that way. And then if you're going to pivot, when you're going to pivot, what we always say, and this is going back to my fundamentals, but you want to go into activities or businesses or fields where you have absolute advantage and success probability is much higher than failure. And that sounds so logical, but if you look at decisions most people make under stress, duress, reaction, they go into lame things where failure is more. And so just like in offers, you want to make an irresistible offer or a resistible offer. And you got to think about that. With regard to opportunities, I'm just going to lay on you, and then you can,
please.
You can take me to task on them, or you can take me to any of a number of different things that I've been doing. But I've seen 5 really cool windows of opportunity that I tell everyone to examine at least and consider right now, because these windows are closing as we open up our world, and they're very great opportunities. So let me lay at least the superficial essence of each one on you, okay?
Yes.
So
please.
The first one is there will never be a time in your life, I don't think, when more companies, media, influencers are more open to doing deals, to collaborating, to partnering, to endorsing, to referring, to co-branding, because everybody needs money and everyone's trying to figure things out. And they sort of latently have this mindset, but they haven't really crystallized. If you've got the ability, and there's strategy behind it, and there is methodology behind it, but to find them, to work both ways. It's a two-way valve. It's you being able to take your product, service, whatever you offer through all kinds of other channels. And we've done billions of dollars doing that. But it's also bringing lots of other products or services that other people have spent millions of dollars creating and developing and perfecting, and being able to get control of them permanently, at least on some kind of a license or exclusive to your audience. So that's the first thing. And there's a million ways you can do it. The second is there are many, many companies that were shocked out of their economic gourd by what happened. They were not economically prepared. They are against the ropes, or they're fundamentally out of business, and the owners are scared. You know what, Liz? You can go to them and you can acquire, you have to buy the business, you can acquire the assets, the names, the buyers, prospects, URL, phone number, any IP. And if you've got a big enough organization and you integrate it into your infrastructure, the incremental cost of servicing it is very low. So you can pay a percentage permanently of the profits from those assets you've acquired to the owner, who's probably not making any money now, who's trying to figure out what to do because he's either laid off his or her whole staff, or if they're keeping him, they're bleeding. The next area, which is very interesting, is if you think about all the 40 million unemployed, they polarize at two ends of the spectrum. Loads of them are low skilled, and that's very sad, but it's not relevant for this discussion. But a surprisingly number are super skilled, and it's very relevant because they were outplaced, terminated, laid off, furloughed because either their high skilled job couldn't be performed, or very frankly, they were six figures and cost so much the employer wanted them off the payroll. What people don't realize is these people had what I call hard won, HARDWON, means they worked their asses off and performing to win the trust of influencers, decision makers, CEOs, CIOs, all the kind of people that you'd want, or individuals who have influence, who have access to all the markets you want to reach. These people are sitting at home, sweating bullets because they were making 300 grand, and now they're going to be applying against 100,000 more of them. And even if they get the job, they're going to be offered less. Right now, you can find them on LinkedIn, and you can get them to refer to a source for you and just take a percentage. You'll never be able to do that again. And there's just infinite number of possibilities. The next, which is very interesting, there must be 5 million salesmen and women that are out of work right now because either what they were selling isn't being bought right now, or they couldn't sell it. Car dealers, salespeople, all of them. They're sitting around, mostly earned commission or sales performance bonuses. They need money, and they're sitting. You can get them to set up all the previous three things I talked about, or just go out and target audiences for you. And you can mobilize hundreds or thousands, and you can find them certainly on LinkedIn, but any kind of employment. And I've had my clients do it, and it works. The fifth one, I can give you a million, but these are 5 really interesting ones. The fifth one is really interesting. I call it options trading, and it's not stock. It's getting functional control of assets or access before you have to really invest anything. If you said, Jay, I publish advisory newsletters. You don't have one. I'd like to publish one in your name and maybe partner with somebody else. And if you give me the rights for 90 days to figure it out, if I execute, I'll give you 20% of the revenue and a signing bonus of 50 grand. I go, okay, I'm not doing it. Then you have the right to do two things. One, see if you want to do it yourself and do a little test. Or find somebody who's in the advisory business and flip that asset to them for more than 50 grand plus an override. I had a friend that did that years ago in one of the downturns. You know what the Rose Bowl is, right?
Yes.
So he went to the Rose Bowl 20 some years ago, and he realized that even though they have the Rose Bowl and UCLA plays their football games on Saturdays during the season, and they do a few concerts, most of the weekends it's empty, and it's got this huge parking and this huge grounds. He went to him and secured the rights to do flea markets every weekend it wasn't being used, and he negotiated a percentage. He negotiated a renewal option if he did a certain amount. He got it very locked up. He didn't know anything about flea markets. He just found the biggest flea market management company, and they gave him a huge six-figure signing bonus plus an override and they just took over his rights. So I can go on, and that might be a little more sophisticated than your audience, but I'm trying to get him to think differently.
It's not. I mean, Jay, in many ways, that's exactly what we do at Lurn. So we publish other experts, and you are 100% right. The amount of conversations we are having right now at Lurn, we can't handle. The amount of people who are coming to us wanting us to publish, we can't handle. We are getting our picking at this moment, and we're getting, without mentioning names, we're getting big names, that we were in conversation with. It's not like they weren't listening to us, but all of a sudden the conversations have changed. It's not, hey, sure, let's connect in a month or two. Now it's, hey, we want to do this. And I'm like, okay, let me go put a plan together. 2 days later, hey, we spoke 2 days ago. When are we doing this? I'm like, wow, it took me 2 months before just to get you on the phone. Now, you're asking to sign.
The very same thing. There's somebody whose name I won't mention who's very well known, and I don't consider that person a competitor, but the person that runs the business considers me one. And I've tried 3 or 4 times to collaborate because I think we're complementary, and they wouldn't return my communication, which was a little offensive. But now they're writing me. I've gotten 3 or 4. You guys want us to sell your content? You want us to promote your seminar? You want to do webinars, and we'll split on the conversion? And I'm laughing my ass off because this only underscores it. By the way, what you should do is tell everyone who's credible that you can't handle, that you want the option to consider it or control it for 3 months, and then tie it up and then flip it to somebody else.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It really is brilliant. What I love and what I hope everyone's taking away from this is that you went outside the box. So many businesses and entrepreneurs right now are within their box thinking, gosh, how do I survive this by being in these boundaries? And you're simply asking people, explore slightly outside of those boundaries, target the same people. You can still get the same customer that you eventually want when we're out of this pandemic, but maybe there's other things they're looking for that they would listen to right now versus what you're used to selling. And that is, I had major aha moments in that right there. And I can tell you, I know that everyone listening is as well. All right. So there's a question I've been wanting to ask you. I'm going to pivot away from the pandemic for a second. I was watching your documentary, and we're going to pop the URL for the documentary so everyone can see. Got to watch it. It is awesome. So really, really well done. I've seen it twice now, so become a little bit of a fanboy. You mentioned something. So this is my complaint of the documentary. I don't think you got into it. There's the one part I caught, and I'm like, oh no, go deeper into that. So I get a chance to ask you though. No, so it's perfect. In your documentary, you mentioned that only 3%, and I find maybe you're being generous, achieve greatness. Right? Like everyone wants to achieve greatness. I don't think I've ever met someone who's like, nah, I'm good. I just want to be average Joe Schmo. Why is that? Like when I first heard you say it, I got scared. I'm like, man, odds are stacked again. I want greatness. Like I think the worst thing I could do is die without feeling like I achieved it. Yeah. Why do you think only 3%? And what can we do to not become the 97%?
Well, first of all, thanks for asking. I got into, I tend to get fascinated with really interesting, what I'll call catalytic concepts, things that if you can figure out, explode your performance in lots of different ways. And ask me before we're done about taking your profits beyond exponential, because I think you'll get a kick out of what I'm going to say. But in answering your question, I figured out, at least to the extent I thought about it, there were 4 reasons. But first of all, let's start with an assumption. I don't think anyone who has normal mental functions comes into this world not wanting greatness in every area. I think they want to be a great, whether it's an athlete or an intellect, they want to be great in their job. They want to be great in their personal life. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't want to be. No, you don't wake up. A salesperson doesn't wake up on Monday morning and say to himself, "Self, I'm going to go out all day and be mediocre. I'm going to do a terrible job." But nevertheless, 97% of us, and not just in one asset. I can't remember how many I identified. There's 8 or 9 facets of our life. Our personal life, our health, our balance, our focus, our growth meaning in mental and in humanity, our financial management and wealth creation, our career or business. So I asked, why does nobody do it? Here's the answers I got, and I haven't done this for a long time, so it might be fragmented. Number one, most people don't have a vision of what greatness looks like manifested in any of those areas. So they don't know what they're aspiring towards, nor do they have a gauge of where they are on. So if you say, I want to be a great entrepreneur, well, I mean, particularly today and particularly online, you got a bunch of gurus who are teaching one-trick pony. And I'm not knocking it, but they're teaching you how to be a masterful entrepreneur, a long-term business builder, an asset creator, a wealth creator, and they're not teaching you how to be long-term in the game. So all you know is how to get more likes or more conversions or more opt-ins. So the first thing is take each of the categories and ask yourself, what does greatness look like? And if you don't have an answer, you start by thinking about somebody you know or know of in any category, friend, icon, somebody you admire, somebody you've seen at work, you work for, church, who's really great on whatever criteria that you would ascribe in that category. Let's talk about a skill set. You could be in the IT. You could be, if you're an info marketer, you want to see what great ones do, not just the tacticians, but and you got to decide, what is greatness? Is it the ability to get 100,000 people in and then basically in 3 years be out of business? Or is it to build a sustaining, ever growing business that works harder and harder for you than you work for it? You got to figure out what your criteria is, and then you want to model whoever you can find or however many you can find, and you want to isolate in the category, what is it that they represent? And you want to try to figure out, what does it look like when it's expressed? What does it feel like internally? What does it sound like? Because you got to figure all those different functions. And if you try to figure that out superficially or try to game greatness, it won't work. It has to be something you can internalize. Then you got to figure out where it is relative to where you are. And again, there's all these different categories of greatness. But let's say you're here, but your aspiration is here. And this isn't really super greatness. This is just the greatness that you need to achieve to be fulfilled and realize your vision for whatever it is, your business, your personal life, your parental life, your romantic life, your wealth creating life. So then you got to figure out, what is the greatest, safest, most success probable path to get me from here to here? Most people make the mistake of trying to pole vault. And I mean, think about it. If you try to pole vault, most people don't have the strength, the ability, the methodology, so they fall. So you want to basically do what I would call serpentine all the way up safely, where sort of the adage about 1,000-mile trip is a step and a step, and how to eat an elephant. You don't want to give yourself, I mean, one of the reasons that I'm doing an ADD moment, one of the reasons I think that all these challenges are so successful right now, and we're trying a couple, is because they're only asking people to make small little micro progress that is very fulfilling, and unless you're brain dead, anybody can do in an hour. And that makes you feel fulfilled. So you need to figure out what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, what it is like in your brain, in your heart, in your mouth, in your conduct. And then you got to figure out where you are, and then you got to find a safe way to make progress towards it. And don't look at what you've not achieved, always look at what you are achieving. Now, so you got those two. Now here's where it gets really tricky. And I have 7 kids, so I can remember very easily when they were all very, very little. When you see a little kid try to walk, talk, eat, poop, ride a bike, they're very, 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 very non-successful in the beginning. They fall, they miss the toilet, they hit a spoon in their eye. And that's what happens when you try to embark on something well beyond your comfort zone or your familiarity zone. So you got you got the probability in the beginning of failing, not succeeding. And people don't understand that. It's very rare, even the people that teach any kind of technology, any kind of methodology, it is very rare that the first time out of the gate you're going to be successful unless you're very, very gifted or inordinately lucky. And when you fail, you've got to have the ability to get back on the horse, and that's very difficult to do alone. The reason parenting is so important is you've got a champion, you've got an advocate, you've got somebody who believes in you, put you back on when you go, hey, even though you didn't make any sense from talking. So you need someone. Can be an advisor, can be a greatness partner, can be a mentor, can be, we call it masterful thinking partner, but you need someone to hold you accountable, but also to hold you to a higher but a benevolent standard of believing in you enough to put you back on course. I mean, that's sort of a short, does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, I mean, makes incredible sense. As you were talking, I was thinking about this, I got to tell you, I'm a little bit of guilty of that. What is greatness? I was thinking my part of my life, like, yeah, I want to achieve greatness, but could I actually taste it, describe it, touch it, feel it, and give you a very, very discrete example? So what if I've already achieved it? I wouldn't even know because I've not sat down and actually asked myself. So,
well, and if you have, here's the point. If you've already achieved it, there's an innate human need and desire to grow.
Right.
But growth doesn't have to be just that. Growth can be that, can be that, can be that, can be that. But I think we always have to set higher performance. I used to be very, very into insane exercises. I mean, I would do 800 pull-ups when I was your age and I was in great shape, or 400 dips. And I found that if I didn't keep adding some number every so often, that it would stop being effective. I think, if you think about physics, you expand or you contract. There's an adage, you grow or you die. There's a philosophy that I learned from a great mentor. In life and in business and in your career, you're either a multiplier or a diminisher. And I think, again, this goes back to a derivative of what I said earlier. You have to decide, you divide and conquer. Where do you stand? Most people don't have a clue where they stand, except where they want to make money. That's the least viable way to make money.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Wow. Thank you. And everyone, you should head to abraham.com. We're gonna put the URLs and everything in there, but the documentary is super powerful. And then of course the podcast, and there's so much more content from Jay that you can grab that goes deep into all of these things. We obviously only have a little bit like an hour today, and I'm going to try to get to a lot of topics, but so much more to be able to have.
And keep me on point, because I'm a poster child for adult ADD. So,
sir, this is your show. There is no such thing as ADD here. Anything you say, we are most open ears to listen to.
Well, I want to make sure I give you content or output that moves people to action. I mean, one of the things I learned from a master, and everyone should think about this because they look at it wrong. The greatest acknowledgement people get is not or a standing ovation. It's the action and the achievement you can stimulate others to make in whatever element of their life, whether it's financial, personal, all these things. And that's what it's all about.
And I couldn't agree more. So let's talk a little bit about a topic that's so relevant to everyone who's watching right now, and that is marketing, sales, specifically selling. Right. So we'll do webinars, and at the end of the game of the webinar, of course, we want to have delivered value. We want to have delivered aha moments and helped those who are watching. But at the end, of course, being a business owner, we want to create a conversion. We want to create a sale. Maybe we're on stage and we're presenting, we want to create a sale. Maybe we filmed a video sales letter and we want that to create a conversion. My question to you is, you have seen sales presentations from more industries and more companies than I think anyone on the face of this planet. I think that is a concrete, statement. What have you found? What makes a great sales presentation? What makes it so that a presentation happens and someone at the end, the consumer that's watching, they just buy? Like, what are the core elements you found to be super?
I'm going to generalize, and it's going to transcend a multitude of integrated industries. So it's a montage. So the first is integrity. I mean, you got if you're manipulative, it's not enduring. and you will not create happy campers. You'll create dissonance. So the first thing is your intention has to be right. Second, you have to believe very sincerely that your product, service, or offer is going to make a reasonable to a profound difference positively in the lives or the businesses or the health or whatever, the entertainment, whatever the outcome is of the market. So then you've got to understand, and most people don't even try to do this, and it's really sad. You got to understand, and you start by saying, I need to examine, evaluate, understand, acknowledge, respect what it's like to be in the other person's shoes, not just the buzzwords and the hyperbolic bullets, but a true appreciation for what that person's life is. Then, I did a lot of work which you may or may not have followed on preeminence, how to become the only trusted advisor, the go-to source, for life and the elements. So the first is you got to be willing to tell people what you really believe, and if it's alternative to normalcy, that's good if you can support it. But you got to be able to put into words what people have non-verbally been either aspiring towards or tormented by in their heart and their mind. And if you'll allow me, I'll tell you when I'm done with this how to do that masterfully and eerily and preemptively beyond anybody else that you compete against. Then you've got, I think that creating trust is very, very important. I don't do webinars. We're going to play around with some, but when we used to, back when conference call based were done, we did, we're big. We did about $25 million one time in about 2 months. And I had a formula that was pretty good. I had a formula that, and this is, in a time when it was more valuable than today. But I had a formula that was really simple. I would tell them I wanted to respect their intelligence. The way I used to do my seminars, I'd say, let me tell you exactly what's going to happen and why and what you should be getting out of it. And I'd walk them through everything that was going to happen, including the fact that at this point, you are going to either understand enough that you'll want to do it yourself or you'll want help. I'm fine either way, but if you want help, I'll give you a way to do it that basically I'm the one mostly investing, but it doesn't matter. And I would have them prepared for everything, but I believe in respecting the intelligence. There's people I've met that say you can't underestimate the intelligence of your buyer. I think the opposite. You want to go in respecting them and giving them the ability to make the decision for themselves. I've found that there's much more power. I don't know if these are answers you want to hear or they're...
No, absolutely. Yes.
But I found that there's much more power in me giving you elements and letting you make the final connection because it's much more deeply rooted in, and you're more passionate than even I am. I think you have to be able very masterfully but authentically to understand future pacing, but not future pacing from manipulation, but future pacing. And also, I don't know what it's called. I guess it would be called retro pacing, because people don't realize what failure to achieve some outcome, whether it's positive opportunity or positive relief from adversity or negativity, is worth to them, because they don't understand what it's really been costing them in the past. And they don't really have a clear vision of what their life can be like in the future. And if you can master being able to take them on both of those journeys, it's very powerful. And then you want to take them to the conclusion and the reason why. Reason why is such an overlooked, powerful thread that runs through everything. What's the reason why? What's the reason why that you should be on this for if it's a webinar or a sales letter, that you should believe this? What's the reason why you should spend plenty of time thinking about it? What's the reason you should be taking notes? What's the reason you should really deeply reflect on every issue? What's the reason if I offer to take you on a journey and be your sword and a shield, that you should strongly consider it if you're really serious? What's the reason why you should have some reality checks with yourself on where you want to take whatever this is? And what's the reason why you should take advantage? What's the reason why you should trust me? I go on and on. Is this helpful?
Yeah. No. I love the the journey, right? Like showing them what they can be, but wrapping that with the why. It's so important. And I know it's something that I teach a lot to our students, which is all about why. Every question is why. Like I look at a little kid, right? A little kid's always going to ask why.
Yeah.
Why do you want me to do this? Why does this work that way? And so like, why should someone show up for your webinar?
Yes.
Why should they stay to the end of the webinar? And why should they buy the product at the end? And it's crazy because a lot of entrepreneurs I'll ask, they actually can't answer the question.
They don't know.
Yeah,
but I mean, the more clarity you have and the more concrete you can answer, and it's not one question. That's where people think, okay, I'm going to answer one big question and I'm going to win. It's why all the way through from before they even sign up. Why should I sign up? Why should I even hit the damn page? And those whys can be addressed by copy, by facts, by correlations, by emotionality. I mean, it's not one size fits all, but it's very, very interesting. And I hope. I mean, I want to make a couple of points that you would probably not ask. So if you'll let me at the end do what I'll call an epilogue aggregate of just random thoughts, I'll do it. But I want to keep in alignment with what you want to ask me.
No, I appreciate that. I take notes here every time you say, because there's something you mentioned I really do want to hit on. So there's something that you said, I want to extrapolate it a little bit because it's something I teach a lot to in the world of copy. And you said, why at every stage? And I really want everyone listening to take away this, to tune into this, because why should they even land on the page? That was exactly what Jay said. And what I've been saying to students always is micro commitment selling. That's what we're in today with the interactive marketing age that we're in. Attention spans are so low. So when someone sees a Facebook ad of yours or a Google ad of yours, the only thing you're trying to do at that point is not sell the product. You're not taking them 6 steps down the journey of the process. It's why should they click, which is the same question of why should they land on your page? And then they see the page. And so why should they engage with the page, right? Why should they register for the webinar? And so that was really powerful. The why. I want everyone to look at their marketing and look at and even through the webinar. Why should they stay? You ask yourself that question, like every 5 or 10 minutes into the webinar, have you given them a reason to stay? And then we refer to that in marketing as open loops and things like that. But I love it. Simple, high level, why. If you can't answer the why, the consumer sure as heck can't answer it.
If I may add.
Yes.
And I've been doing this for such a long time, and I've been doing it in the terms of universal applicability, meaning it can be morphed, modified, adapted, adopted to almost any application industry. So I've got some stuff, but I'll get really deep on something and then I'll forget about it. But we did something for a while. I always am thinking about different friction points in the process. And we created a concept, which I haven't visited for a long time, but I can try to give you a few of them. I called it access denied. If you're not getting the response you want, they're denying you access to their belief, their trust, their commitment, their engagement. You got to figure out at every level why you're being denied different elements of access. It's sort of simple, but it feels really profound.
No, I love it. It's very true. Wow. Okay. You mentioned something, we got to get into this, and because you said you'd come back and talk about it, and this is the only note point I could write, so I'm reading it. It says, hitting someone's pain better than your competition.
Yeah. So I was trained by people much brighter and much deeper thinkers than I am. A little of it has rubbed off. One of the people that taught me turned $1,000 investment into I'll extrapolate. It would be a business bigger than Agora because they were 3 times Agora's size when they sold it. And I really studied what they were doing, and I gained a real interesting insight into this. And they really said the biggest opportunity you have is to be able to verbalize what people have never put into words. Because if you think about it, when you do that, it resonates. They can say, that person gets me, because it turns on a switch that gets really their juices flowing. So I asked myself, how can I be masterful? I mean, when I was younger, I did a lot more research. Then I got into more sophisticated strategy and stuff. I said, how can I almost instantly command and control ethically the communication with someone's subconscious and not do it covertly or surreptitiously? And after thinking about it, I got an answer, and it's very interesting. I call it the Amazon.com School of Marketing. You want me to explain it?
Yes, please.
So, okay, think about this. Well, I think Amazon, now if you go to, so take whatever you sell and then go to Amazon, start with books, but you go to any category, and you can do on review sites too. Take any category that is the same or similar or an extension. If you're doing investment, you could do stock, option, whatever you're doing, weight loss, you could do health, weight loss, fitness, etc. And then go to the top 25 bestsellers for the last 3 years and look at the following. First of all, the headline and the subheadline, because sadly in our life, most books are sold more by the promise than the content. Then look at the chapter titles, write them all down. Then here's where the real power comes. Now, I think Amazon, I haven't looked lately, is it 0 to 5 on reviews, on rating?
5 stars, yeah. 1 star to 5 stars.
So you go to Amazon and you look at all the zeros and all the 5s, and I'll tell you why. Think about this. Think in your life when you were ever around anyone who was passionate. I don't mean sexually, I mean emotionally passionate. And passion has 2 sides, positive and negative. When you're really pissed and you're really mad, if you back out the vulgarities, you can think of people, they're so clear in their communication and precise. When you're thrilled, you're very clear and precise. If you find a book or a product or a person or a company either very disappointing or very satisfying, and you're writing a review, if you're not gaming it, you're very passionate. So if you pick up for all these categories, as many of the zeros and as many of the 5s, and you put them into 2 columns, negatives and positive. Now you've got the most powerful weapon in competition ethically you can achieve. You've got the way to have a headline that resonates. You've got all the bullets. You've got all the subheads. You've got all the reasons why, because they've told you you're speaking not just their superficial verbal language, you're speaking to the essence of their subconscious. And I've done it for clients and it never fails. So there's a no-brainer.
That's what I would say. Mind blown moment. I love it. One of my questions to you was going to be, you answered it before, and it was going to be, what's one copywriting or direct response, writing tip that you would give? And that's it. I mean, that answers it. I'm not even going to bother asking that question. That is such an awesome way
and
to
we have,
find out.
by the way, if you want, and it's not, it's a little static, but for about a year, I had somebody go on every major quality platform and pick up every good headline. And we have about 10,000. If you want, I can have Brian give you a digital file and you can put it on yours. I mean, I stopped doing it, but I have at least 10,000 headlines from.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Everyone who's listening right now, you want that? I sure as heck do. So I would love it.
I'll give it. You can put it on your site.
Oh, that would be awesome.
In answering your question, when I used to be a very good copywriter. I don't write copy anymore, and I like long copy, which is not. I like deep, rich. I like crock cooking over flash steering. That's just my old school preference. But when I used to write copy, first thing I would do would be collect headlines, bullets, calls to action, risk reversal, reasons why, bonuses from as many different external domains and categories as possible. And I would basically go to the effort that it didn't matter, computer. I would put them on paper and then I would rewrite them 5-10 times, each one over to whatever the product, service, market I was doing until I could find an implication, application. Then I would put it, each one's collectively in categories of that I could draw from when I was building my copy. And I use this for sales people, phone, pitches, everything. I also, with headlines, because people understand, a headline is not just, the top of an ad. It is the beginning of a landing page. It's the subject line. It's the first sentence or paragraph you say when your salespeople follow up to take a inquiry or a low price buyer and try to upgrade them. It's the signage if you have a trade show. It's all kinds of things, and everybody knows this, but they stop at just what technologically an SEO or a Facebook optimizer would do. But there's so many more elements that can be leveraged up, and each one separately can be 50%, 100% better if you understand it and you understand variability. And I'm going to get too esoteric maybe, but it's very powerful.
It is indeed. I love it. I love that tip. And there's something you said. I have to take a minute to pat myself on the back. I'm so proud of myself to have heard you say it. I teach a lot of copywriters, and one of the things that I teach when it comes to hook generation and headline generation, and the way I put it is almost exactly how you put it. So I'm so proud to be on the right track there.
Great.
Is I'll tell people, if you can verbalize what someone's always thinking but too afraid to say,
Perfect.
then you're going to instantly capture their attention.
Great. But most people don't want to go to that effort, or when I came from a school, I was, and if you've ever studied, if you're not, everyone should study Claude Hopkins and Albert Lasker and David Ogilvy and John Caples. But I came from that school where we wouldn't do one time. When I used to write copy, it's very interesting, but it's copywriting. I used to do it by hand. It was arduous. It would take me hours, days, sometimes weeks. But as I was going through it, if I came to an impasse that I couldn't make work, I wouldn't just try to fix that and sort of glue it to the next part. I would start from beginning again because I felt there was something wrong. There's a concept, not original to me, but it's called a greased chute. You know what a chute is?
Yeah.
Like a ladder.
Yeah.
And a greased chute is what they would have in manufacturing to have things fall from this floor down. A copy is a greased chute. The purpose of the headline is to get you to read the next. The purpose of the next to get you to read the next. And if you don't think that way, you're not going to optimize. You can make money, but most people don't understand. There's so many gradients in strategic. I'll call it strategic optimization, performance enhancement. There's quantity, quality, convertibility, residual value. There's time value of money. Conversion period. There's all these factors that most people really don't get into, but every one of them has the ability to enhance or diminish the residual, the wealth of everything you can create from the interaction and the opportunity.
No, it's I love it. We've got about time for another. I know, and it breaks my heart because I want to keep going, but another one, maybe max 2 questions. I have notes here because you had mentioned you wanted to talk more about this, and I didn't capture it in its full essence, but maybe me mentioning it will trigger what you meant. Profits beyond the exponential.
Yeah. So my career has been basically dedicated to finding ways to work on the geometry of the business. And in doing so, I've created, 30, 40 different categories of performance enhancement, most of which didn't require any more investment or risk. They just required you to get more performance out of what you were doing, who you were doing it for, how you were doing it, where you were doing it, things like that. And I created about 30 different categories, and each category wasn't one trick pony. It was a suite or a portfolio. The 3-way to grow a business model has 28 ways to get more buyers. It's got 20 ways to get them to spend more. It's got 15 ways to get them to be more, spend longer, get more utility, revenue, value. The Power Parthenon has about 30 different ways you can add more revenue pillars. I can go on and on. But I realized that one day, and each one is about making more profit, not being obsessed with top line, but being focused, first of all, on making what you're already doing, how you're doing it, where you're doing it, what you're spending your investment opportunity costs, produce more yield. And I realized, I kept saying, well, what is geometry times geometry? I was never very well trained in math. And finally, after asking it, non-verbally for about 3 years, I looked it up on Google. And I found, to my thrill, that mathematically there are, I believe, there's at least 5, and I think there's 8 gradients above exponentiality. Pentation, hexation, octation, I can't remember the other ones. But if mathematically it is proven you can go way beyond exponential, and I'm not the only one that's got them, but I've got 30 or 40 categories. You should never operate your business, and I'm going to make an out-of-body comment. I don't think most online marketers are operating a business. I think it's an elongated promotion, and with a little shift in mindset and strategy, it can be a business. But you should never operate your business in the incremental zone. If the same effort or less, the same opportunity or less, the same capital or less, the same intellectual capital or less, properly deployed, can be operating in the exponential zone. So we created, I never finished it, but I created a whole program called Taking Your Business Profits Beyond Exponential. But I think people should challenge themselves, because it's actually easier to grow geometric or exponential than it is linear. You got more impact points you can stimulate.
Yeah, and I think you address this in your documentary also. It's where you talk to the effect of, everyone's just so focused on one thing, and you're not thinking about the opportunities that are right around it, that are complementary and that are to the same customer, same market, same everything, but that those legs, they add exponential impact to the business.
And most people don't understand. I love that you brought that out. I believe everybody should have multiple access points. It stems from a military term called force multiplier effect, which means if you and I were at war, I would mount a multitude of different onslaughts. First thing, I would probably take out your infrastructure, your roads, your airports, your communications. Then I might drop bombs. Then I might do surface-to-air missiles. Then I might do drone attacks. Then I might do, finally, tanks and infantry. And I wouldn't care which one served the salvo, but I'd want to really penetrate you from every vantage point, particularly if it kept winning. Now, in business, it's fascinating because you find somebody and their whole business is driven by Facebook or by search or by YouTube. And I go, well, why wouldn't you use all of them? And they'll say, well, it doesn't work that well. And I'll say, well, even if it only broke even, but brought you names, or even if it lost a little, but it gave you power. I've got one of the top guys on YouTube. We don't even know how to use YouTube, but I got 9 million videos, and we never get a lot of views because I don't know how to mark them and all the other things. So I gave it to somebody and I said, look, you make it great. You get me 100 million views. You can have all the ad spend because I want it strategically for positioning. When I used to be in the seminar business, I'll leave you with this and you can ask me anything else. We made most of our money. We did $250 million in a couple of years. So we were very good. And most of it was generated from partnerships, what you would call affiliate marketing, but taken to a much more sophisticated level. But in addition to that, I would spend money. I negotiated very, 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 very well. We would run 16 to 24 page supplements in every airline in-flight magazine and entrepreneur magazine and Success. And almost none of them made much money. But they were so powerful in the positioning because we would have examples of my methodology. We would add testimonials. We actually had 3 full pages of testimonials. But unlike most people that will have JR Iowa, we would have the man's name or the woman's. We would have the name of the business, the location, and this is the mind blow, and a daytime phone number with one little disclaimer. Please don't burden or bother them unless it's the last mile in making a positive decision. But we did all this to position me because we knew that the real money was from the endorsers, but half of their people were traveling, reading Entrepreneur. We wanted to have my bid. When I used to do seminars with endorsers, it's very interesting, but it's strategy. Before I would have the endorsers send we did a lot of mailing endorsements before the digital work. Before I'd ever have them do anything for the seminar, I would have them first, and I would underwrite it, do a mailing offering. Back then I was 50 grand a day. Today I'm 120 grand a day. So I mean, we very rarely get a lot of people to pay that, but it's okay because we get enough that it's true. But I would have a letter go out from the endorser offering a $50,000 one-day consult. And we'd be lucky to break even. Maybe we get one or two, depends on the size of the list. And I'd be thrilled. And I would do the consult, and it was great. But after that, we'd go behind and with a letter from the endorser saying so many people were incredulous that anybody could charge that much. But they're also fascinating that if somebody could and did, he must be pretty powerful. Is there any way that I, the endorser, could arrange for him, me, to provide his knowledge in an affordable way? And I asked him, me, if he would. And he said, yes, if you get the economies of scale, get me 500 people at $5 grand and I'll do it. So I'm offering it to you. And it was just masterful positioning.
Yeah. Oh man, that's powerful. Yeah, it's what a deep level of thought process that takes though, right? To think that deep and to think about positioning. I was doing an evaluation this year alone. So I launched my podcast. It took quite a bit to get me to do it. I was just kicking the can down the street. And I started getting some friends messaging me saying, listen, I don't know how, I don't know why, and I can't track it, but my podcast has made a massive impact on my business. My best customers come from my podcast. You need to do a podcast. And I was like, I can't track it. I already do paid ads. I'm so good at it. It's just so much time. And, I don't know if I want to do it. And I can tell you that after now a year and a half plus of doing it, not only have I fallen in love with it, not only have I learned so much from the guests that we bring on, but it's made a huge impact on my business, and it's given me presence, and it's given me everything, positioning, because of the quality of the guests we bring on. And I've learned so many people are being introduced to my brand thanks to the guests that we have on, because they come to watch for the guest, see me interviewing the guest, connect me with the guest, and go off and look for me. And now it's all of a sudden I'm pouring thousands of dollars, tens of thousands now every month into marketing my podcast. And I couldn't tell you for a second if I'm getting a return or not. I'm not tracking it. I just know.
But it's a strategic play, but it also shows them the depth and the mastery of your mind by the quality of questions and respect and what I would call progression, connectivity, and bridges. I mean, I've done a lot of interviews of other people. And I'm very impressed because you're very respectful, but the denominator of a great interviewer is not that he or she needs to dominate. They almost want to be transparent. They are a catalyst to showcase the brilliance and the agility and the ingenuity and the intelligence and the insight of the guest in a way that translates that to actionability for their viewer.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Means the world to me. All right, I got my one question for you. I have asked this question to so many people, but I got to tell you, of all the people I've ever asked this question to, I am most excited to hear your response in well over a decade. And that is, Mr. J. Abraham, what book or books do you recommend we read? You're talking to, you know what? No, not audience related. Just what books would you say we should read?
The books that I read 50 times each. Let me give you, I want to give you the context, because I don't think people appreciate the answer without the depth of the background or the context. And that's another lesson. Most people go right to the declaratory statement without giving people the depth of why or what caused them to come there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a mistake. So when I was at Entrepreneur Magazine, I'll tell you a funny story also. I was with Entrepreneur Magazine when it first started. Nobody knew what an entrepreneur was. They didn't know how to pronounce it. They didn't know what it meant. We sent out all our mailings with the Webster's Dictionary excerpt oversized on the envelope that showed how to pronounce it and what it meant and how to associate yourself to that aspiration. But when I was at Entrepreneur, I was very good at marketing, but nothing had come together, this depth of understanding. And we paid a very prominent marketing person to give me an immersion. And the first thing he did was give me a bibliography of books. And this was before the internet. And I had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars and get bookfinders all over the world to find them. But he taught me to read the old masters who had to understand the workings of the mind. And while technology has changed and graphic has changed and maybe simplicity, the human being will not change from the time that, man was first put on earth or woman to the time we're off of earth. So he had me read Claude Hopkins and he had me read Albert Lasker, and I'll tell you why. And he had me read George Hotchkiss, and he had me read John Kennedy, not John Kennedy, the president, but the famous copywriter. And he had me read John Caples and all, but he had me read it two ways. Claude Hopkins was arguably the greatest direct response, reason why marketer, test marketer, survey, research marketer of all time. And he was the progenitor of more great copywriters than you can imagine. But he wrote two books. One was called Scientific Advertising. The other's called My Life in Advertising. This man said, read Scientific Advertising first. It's a distillation of the guy's methodology and views just stated. Then he said, read My Life in Advertising, because then you'll see the actions, the events, the discoveries, the connections that he went through to cause him to formulate those. Then read it again. Then he said, read this other one, which was about a guy named Albert Lasker, who at the time ran the largest or the second largest advertising agency in the world and employed this guy. So you'll see what it was like contextually, because you can read what the guy says happened. Then you could read what the other guy's biographer said happened to the guy he worked for, and you can put it all together. And most people don't want to take the time. I read that book 50 times, those books 50 times, and I should read them 50 more, because they taught me reason why advertising, they taught me testing, they taught me that differentiation that most people don't understand, that all leads are not worth the same. One size doesn't fit all. That depends on source, proposition, product. All those have a differing value, not just coming in, but going out over LTV. And it just taught me all kinds of things, but it taught me how to understand what the market really wants and how to speak to them. And he was the guy that created preemptive advertising, telling what everybody else does, but being the only one that tells it and getting proprietary value for it. And I learned so much, and everybody would. I think you can probably buy them now online for together. There's two books together, My Life in Advertising and Scientific Advertising by Claude Hopkins, Claudehopkins. And then the one about Albert Lasker is a little bit sophisticated. I don't know if I'd read that one. It's a deep book. It's about 500 pages. And then there's David Ogilvy books, and The Confessions of an Advertising Man is great. There's two or three other books, and there's his letters. But I was really into trying to understand at a deep level, not a superficial level. And it sounds like you teach at that, but very sadly, the majority of people that teach online marketing teach what I call veneer understanding and hyperbole and bullets and sensationalism, not appreciation, empathy. I forgot, empathy is very important. You have to really have a respectful understanding for what it's like to be in the mind, in the life, in the readers. Also, when you write to somebody, you got to realize, even if Facebook is getting you 2 million impressions a minute, it's 2 million individuals one at a time. You're talking to one person at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, those are some things.
Oh, no, it's so powerful. Jay, thank you so much. Man, it's been just absolutely eye-opening. I really, really hope we could get you back again.
My pleasure. It's fun. You ask great questions, and you're very respectful. And I'm going to study more of your work, because what you're demonstrating tells me you're a very quality person, and I'm very impressed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And before we started, we had a conversation, and I made a commitment to you about the book I'm working on, and I'm going to hold to it. So that's my commitment to you. I'm going to get through my paradigms and break through it and send something over your way. Thank you again so much, sir. It's been an honor. As always, you have blown us away, and thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Everybody, let's all send Jay our love. Type in "thank you, Jay" into the comments, and let's just really take in what he said. Now, of course, you're going to want to listen to this again, and we're going to make sure it gets posted for you. You want to listen to it 50 times. Like he's done with the books, you want to listen to this 50 times. So without further ado, let's get back to the show. Let's get back to everything else we've got going on. So we're going to take a quick pause and a switch over to the screen and keep the event going. And Jay, again, thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure. And if you want, we'll put this on our own site for you too. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, thank you. Wasn't that absolutely amazing? One of my favorite interviews I've ever done. What a legend. Seriously. Thank you for listening. Remember, leave a comment below if you're on YouTube. Click the thumbs up icon. Click the bell icon. Do all of that. Anikpodcast.com. Leave us a review on iTunes. All the people that engage with our social media and leave us reviews. I pick winners every week to win cool gear. All right. Free stuff. You can't say no to that. Plus a call with me. So make sure you comment, leave feedback, help us grow this podcast. As I always say, when life pushes you, stand straight, smile, and push it the heck back. This is Anik Singal. I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to The Fighting Entrepreneur with your host, Anik Singal.